Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Apolla's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and I am excited for the topic that I'll be going through tonight, which is the Sirius Star System. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I just had to run and grab something as my intro was playing. This is going to be a really interesting show tonight. I really enjoy when I'm not doing an interview. Basically taking a topic and dissecting it live, like usually something that I'm interested in, something that I find really fascinating. And usually, I bring up a lot of different things, and a lot of times I can actually tend to make connections like during the live show that I wouldn't have thought about or realized before. So basically, as I'm sure you've seen me do before, I usually pull up these different articles and and then I connect different ideas on the topic. And usually I can make some really incredible connections. And sometimes I do this within an hour before the show. I really enjoy it a lot. But, obviously I spend a lot of time reading books on many of these topics that I talk about. So it's really fascinating to just pull up articles on the different ideas that I have connected together in my mind to basically be able to display them for you. So I really enjoyed doing that, and I think that will be an interesting show for tonight. I'm not actually doing a show tomorrow. I know I do a live show usually every Wednesday, but tomorrow I cannot go live. I was thinking about pre-recording today's show and airing it tomorrow, but I just really enjoy seeing you all in the comments, and I haven't been able to do that on my last couple of shows because they were both pre-recorded interviews. So it's really good to see you all in the comments. Let me just take a minute to say hello to Alien Girl. I gotta come on your show again, and you gotta come on mine. Oh, I got Mitch Milisano's in the house. Oh yeah. We got Renee. Renee's always here for me. I love Renee. Renee, you're freaking awesome. It's good to see everyone tonight. I know I probably don't have as many people in my chat as I normally would because this is not a Wednesday and people aren't used to that. And I didn't really realize I'd be going live till today. I thought I would pre-record today and just set it for tomorrow, but I just really like seeing you all in the chat. Yes, Alien Girl, let's hang out. I'm ready. Let's do it. So, really good to see you all there. And, I always like to see your feedback when I'm going live myself, dissecting a topic. And before I get started here, I want to remind you all that, my last show I did was with the legacy herself, the legend herself, Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot. And I know the end of our episode kind of got cut off because of some tech issues. So she wants to come back and do a part 2. And we were actually planning to do that tomorrow. But as I am not able to go live tomorrow now, we're going to do that for next week. So definitely stay tuned for that. That's going to be a really awesome show. And we'll probably get more into the transhumanist agenda. So stay tuned for that. And I definitely have a lot of interviews, potential interviewees booked and set up for the coming months. So I'm really excited to bring them all on. I've been traveling so much. Finally getting some time to stay around and actually do some interviews that I've been meaning to do for a long time. So I'm excited to get into those. So before I get started here, I want to remind you all to please remember to check out my art, which is over here at shamanspears.com. Uh, Shaman Spears are uniquely handcrafted energy chilling devices, which I've invented myself. They're basically all for the purpose of channeling energy. I fill them all with copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand I collect from sacred places around the world down the insides. Because the bamboo is hollow, they're all made out of bamboo. I actually even picked the bamboo myself in Topanga Canyon. And I have a few left over from my last couple of collections. And I'm working on a new collection right now, which is really incredible. And hopefully, I'll be able to get it done soon. I know I've been saying this for a long time, but it's getting closer. It's getting closer. It's just a very much more complex collection of spears than I usually do. So definitely be excited for that. Hopefully I'll have those out and ready by Thanksgiving, by around Black Friday, Christmas shopping season. But for now, I still have a lot of really incredible spears left on my site. And again, shaman spears, they all range from around medium staff size to large staff size to wand size. So you can see I'm holding one up here right now, and they're basically for the purpose of amplifying energy. So they definitely do that. And I'm sure anyone in the comments who actually has already purchased this spear and got initiated, quote unquote, would tell you that they are very powerful. I also have some EMF devices, or some devices that kind of help relieve EMF frequencies from your home, which is orgonite that I've made myself. I have some orgonite pyramids, orgonite bracelets, and some other art that I have just for fun up here. So definitely go check that out because you purchasing my art is how I fund my show and keep myself going. As I can no longer work in Hollywood because I don't have a job. Hopefully that will change soon. I'm really hoping that will change soon. I think they're letting that whole thing go. But for the time being, this is how I fund myself and keep myself going. So if you want to make a donation to my show, if you like watching me and you want to see me keep going with this and go further with it, maybe even make some more awesome pre-edited on location type shows, then please go to my site, get yourself a spear, and that is what funds me and keeps me going. So it would be very much appreciated. Also, by the way, anyone who gets a spear also gets a ancient scroll that talks about what it means to have one. Pretty cool stuff. So definitely go check those out. Also, here's a one of my EMF frequency devices I have here. So this is one of the orgonite daggers, just to give you a little visual of that. And those are online too. Okay, let's take a drink here before I get started. Also, I plan on getting my show up on all the podcast platforms. So that's something I'm working on right now. And actually, we should probably have done by the end of this week. So stay tuned for that as well. I was up on other podcast platforms for my radio show, but now I have, as I moved away from the radio show and strictly doing my YouTube channel, I'm going to start getting those up on those different platforms on my own now. So that I get all the money and all the payout from them, as opposed to what I was dealing with before with all that. All right, so let's get started here. Let me see. Okay, so I have a lot pulled up for tonight's show, and there's a lot to get into, and all these things kind of interconnect. So I'm trying to think of what to really start with first here. And I think I'll just start with a general description of what Sirius is. So let's start with this. So this is just a general description of Sirius, or the Sirius Star System, from Britannica. All right, Sirius is also called Alpha Canis Majoris, or the dog star, brightest star in the sky, with apparent visual magnitude negative 1.46. It is a binary star in the constellation of Canis Major. The bright component of the binary is a blue-white star 25.4 times as luminous as the sun. It has a radius 1.71 times that of the sun and a surface temperature of 9,940 kelvins, which is more than 4,000 K higher than that of the sun. As the distance from the solar system is 8.6 light years, only twice the distance of the nearest known star system beyond the sun, Alpha Centauri system. Its name comes from a Greek word meaning sparkling or scorching. Sirius was known as Sothis to the ancient Egyptians, who were aware that it made its first heliacal rising, i.e., rose just before sunrise of the year at about the time the annual floods were beginning in the Nile River Delta. They long believed that Sothis caused the Nile floods, and they discovered that the heliacal rising of the star occurred at intervals of 365.25 days. Rather than the 365 days of their calendar year, a correction in the length of the year that was later incorporated into the Julian calendar. Among the ancient Romans, the hottest part of the year was associated with the heliacal rising of the dog star, a connection that survives in the expression of dog days. That Sirius is a binary star was first reported by German astronomer Friedrich Wilhelm Bessel in 1844. He had observed that the bright star was pursuing a slightly wavy course among its neighbors in the sky and concluded that it had a companion star, which is revolved in a period of about 50 years. The companion was first seen in 1862 by Alvin Clark, an American astronomer and telescope maker. Sirius and his companion revolved together in orbits of considerable eccentricity and with average separation of the stars of about 20 times Earth's distance from the sun. Despite the glare of the bright star, the eighth magnitude companion is readily seen with a large telescope. Okay, and I'm not going to get into this more here because, like I said, this is all going to be interconnecting. So I want to make sure I don't repeat myself with different things here. I'm going to go back and look at these comments here. Okay, so yeah, someone said here, buckle up, and definitely because this show is going to get wild. I am just starting here. I want to connect this with the ancient mythologies around the world, and I'm going to get to that, and that gets very interesting. But before that, I want to make the connection with the binary star system and the three body problem. So I found this article that is getting into Sirius supporting extraterrestrial life and the possibility of it. So let me start with this here. And like I said, buckle up because this is going to be a really wild episode tonight, guys. All right, so can the Sirius star system support life? So here is a kind of diagram of the Sirius star system. As you can see here, there's the Sun, Sirius, Proxima A of Centauri. Here's some of the other stars here. And this is the distance of 10 light years. That's what that distance represents. And the galactic center is facing that direction when you were looking at this. So I found this article very interesting just starting off here. And like I said, I'm going to get into all the mythologies. But first, I want to cover this very interesting connection that I made, which I will get into after the end of this article. So the Sirius Star System. In 1976, a book was written by Robert Temple called The Sirius Mystery. It suggests that the Dogon tribe of Africa had advanced astronomical knowledge given to them by the extraterrestrials from Sirius. There were definitely a lot of anomalies surrounding the knowledge of the Dogon tribe. They knew of the existence of a second star that was not visible to the naked eye, and the Dogon had no telescopes. It was postulated that they also knew the existence of a third star in the Sirius system that is completely undetected to this day. And I will get into what I believe that is in a second. The existence of this knowledge, as well as several other pieces of information, was cited as proof that the Dogon tribe had been visited and influenced by extraterrestrials called the Nomo, an amphibian race. The book is well written and it would take a while to properly research all the data to determine its validity. But what does the raw science say? Can the Sirius Star System actually sustain life? So, what do we know for sure? Sirius is a known binary star system. This means that there are two stars in the system. The main star is a Class A white star called Sirius A. There's a companion star, Sirius B, which is a white dwarf star roughly 20 astronomical units away from Sirius A currently and has an orbit of 49.9 years. The system is roughly 300 million years old. One Sirius A has a habitable zone of between 2 and 5 AU, otherwise known as the Goldilocks zone. Any planet closer than 2 AU and it would be too hot, further out than 5 AU and it would be too cold to support life. So it is in the Goldilocks zone. The age of the star system is important. Scientists have put the age of the Sirius star system at roughly 300 million years old. Our star system is 4.5 billion years old, to give an idea of how long it may take for life to develop normally to the stage it has on Earth. Be careful when making this comparison, however, as Earth has suffered numerous extinction level events throughout its history that may or may not be common in other star systems. However, even keeping that in mind, 300 million years is barely long enough for planets to form, never mind life forming on that planet. This means that any planet orbiting Sirius A would be a young world. It would have warm, shallow oceans, and any continents formed would be small with little or no erosion and volcanic. The planet would have a thick and very humid atmosphere, and this environment would be dominated by a bright sun beaming out sterilizing ultraviolet light. At the bottom of the ocean, protected from the sun's detrimental effects, simple forms of bacterial life could gain a threshold nourished by hydrothermal vents from the planet's interior. How long does it take to develop into more complex life? Add to this the fact that Sirius A's lifespan in its current configuration, otherwise known as its main sequence lifetime, is only 1 billion years, and 300 million years have already passed, and we can assume that no life that formed on any planet in the habitable zone would live would live long in 700 million years. All planets in existence today around Sirius A will be destroyed when it reaches the end of its MSL. So the age says that the prospect of life in the Sirius star system is low, but what about the stars themselves? Is there a third star? As stated, it is known that Sirius has two stars, which is with a possibility for a third. But let's focus on the two science knows about for sure right now. Sirius A is a spectral type A star, also known as a white star. These stars have high mass and burn brighter and hotter than our sun, which is a class G yellow star. Because of this, they tend to consume the supply of hydrogen faster and thus are shorter lived. They tend to give off a lot of ultraviolet light, severely restricting biological evolution. Sirius B is a white dwarf on a 49.9 year orbit of Sirius A. And during that orbit, it is between 8 and 31 AU distance from Sirius A. This star would give off similar bright, and then it is closest to Sirius A would be a very strong second sun from any planet near the outer rim of the Goldilocks zone for Sirius A. The existence of a second white dwarf star in Sirius system would seem to suggest that the possibility of life is extremely remote indeed. But wait, there is a supposed third star in the Sirius system. According to Robert Temple's Dogon information, this should be a red dwarf star. He was so certain of it that he made the following quote: "If a Sirius C is ever discovered and found to be a red dwarf, I will conclude that the Dogon information has been fully validated." So what about the third star? Well, funny you should ask. Gravitational studies done in 1995 showed a possible brown dwarf star orbiting Sirius A every 6 years. Could this be the elusive Sirius C spoken about by the Dogon? However, before we lose ourselves too much in determining the effects of the third star would have on any planets in the Goldilocks zone, it should be noted that a more recent study published in 2008 and using advanced infrared imaging technology came to the conclusion that Sirius probably did not have a third star. I say probably as the survey of the entire system was not fully complete. So before moving on here, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and conclude this article and make my connection with it. So just coming back here to check up on your comments. Um, so there is an equation that baffles scientists, and it is called the three body problem. Some of you may have heard of this, and it's been discussed many times by Michio Kaku, physicists like that. And so basically, there's a binary star system. Most stars are part of a binary star system. And a lot of scientists have been actually looking into the possibility of is our sun actually part of a binary star system, which is very interesting. But there is also possibilities of there being more than one star in a system and not just a binary star system. And I believe these have been found already. So, I just want to make this connection. When I was reading this article, I basically connected this with something that I find extremely interesting, which is the book, The Three Body Problem. Let me oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, one second. Okay, here we go. So I read this book around this time a couple years ago. It's called The Three Body Problem. And this book is really, really fascinating. I highly recommend checking it out because it is basically a sci-fi book. It kind of reads, it's not like Dune or Star Wars or something where it's like, on other planets. It's actually set here on Earth. And it was actually written by a Chinese author and is translated to English. So that makes it very interesting because basically there are a lot of different references to like the Cultural Revolution and things like that in the book that a lot of Americans don't know a lot about. So there'll be like footnotes at the bottom. If you're reading it, then you can go to the footnotes and find out more about these different times during the Cultural Revolution in China's history. So I found this book extremely fascinating, and I'm not going to get into um I don't want to ruin the end of it for you. Like, you definitely have to go see this. And also, it is actually being turned into a Netflix series, which I feel may be disappointing, but hopefully it turns out well. I'm really worried about that because I don't want it to ruin the book for me. But the three body problem is a very interesting equation. And if you want to get into just kind of start wrapping your mind around what the three body problem is, I would say the best way to do it is to read this book. And like I said, I don't want to get into, I don't want to ruin it for you. Please just go read this book. You are not going to regret it. And so that's all I have to say on that. But let me share with you all what Wikipedia describes the three body problem as. So, in physics and classical mechanics, the three body problem is the problem of taking the initial positions and velocities or momenta of 3 point masses and solving for their subsequent motion according to Newton's laws of motion and Newton's law of universal gravitation. The three body problem is a special case of I believe this is 11 body problem. Unlike two body problems, no general closed form solution exists. As the resulting dynamical system is chaotic, for the most initial conditions and numerical methods are generally required. Historically, the first specific three body problem to receive extended study was the one involving the moon, Earth, and the sun. In an extended modern sense, a three-body problem is any problem in classical mechanics or quantum mechanics that models the motion of three particles. So, that's a general description of what the three-body problem is exactly. And so connecting that to what I'm talking about with Sirius here is that basically a binary star system, which, like I said, most star systems are, and many people say that our sun is very likely part of a binary star system. And a lot of people have guessed that Planet X or Nibiru would be the other star in that system. And that obviously opens up a whole can of worms with the Anunnaki connection and everything to do with that, the Sumerians and all that. But I'm not going to get into that right now. So basically, the binary star system, if you're a part of a binary star system, if, for instance, Nibiru or Planet X was our sun's binary star, then that means according to the orbits, usually it would actually be hard for us to see it because the sun would usually be kind of in between uh the other star and our planet. So the book The Three Body Problem actually really gets into this, and it's a really interesting concept and is really amazing because in the book they get into it and they actually kind of put you in a situation where like the main character feels like they're experiencing life and civilizations on a planet that is dealing with this. And basically with a binary star system, like I was talking about earlier in the article, sometimes the orbits can be a little off, where sometimes maybe one sun would come into orbit a little too close to the planet and could cause issues with the planet, which can be a little unpredictable. Like sometimes maybe like a planet that would be in a Goldilocks range could get sucked in to, like a gravitational field it wasn't in originally, and like different problems can arise from this. And this is definitely something that's explored a lot in science fiction novels. But what's really interesting is with the three body problem, this is basically getting into the concept of, and this book represents this very well, is the concept of there being three suns, which means that the orbit of three suns together would be extremely erratic. It would be very hard to keep life on a planet that would be in a star system like that, and live for any amount of time. And it would be extremely unpredictable. And that's what it gets into in the three body problem that's so fascinating is how long could a civilization last, or how long could life take to evolve on a planet and have a civilization before something happens where one of the suns gets too close, or one of the suns kind of comes barreling through the gravitational field, or one of the suns ends up getting too far away. And what's interesting about this concept is that basically the physics with a single star system are very different than what the physics would be if you were living in a binary star system. And if you were living in a three-star system or trinary star system, then the physics for that would be completely different than the physics of a binary star system, which means this is just something that is just very hard to wrap your head around. And I can't even really wrap my head around it. And, this is what it even says in the Wikipedia article I was just reading here, is that scientists have a very difficult time trying to wrap their head around this because it is a completely different kind of physics than what we know or could even try to perceive. So it's just a really fascinating topic, and that's why it's something that so many books have been written about. And like I said, I highly recommend reading The Three Body Problem. Read that book, and you'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Don't wait till the series comes out because it might suck, or maybe not, but It might. So I'm just gonna warn you on that. Please just go read the book. And I actually haven't read the last two books in the series, so I need to get around to that. But highly recommend that. All right, so moving on here. Like I said, I want to get into the mythology. So those were kind of all the facts I had. Now I want to get more into these different mythologies that I think are interesting, from around the world. And basically, every ancient civilization around the world has a fascination with Sirius. There's always some weird connection with Sirius. Obviously, Sirius and Orion's belt, many the Orion star system or the constellation of Orion, like many um temples around the world have been built so that they align with the stars in Orion's belt. And obviously, the Sirius star system is right next to the constellation of Orion. So, there are basically every ancient civilization around the world has some really incredible mythologies on this. And I'm just going to kind of barely tap into them on today's show because I obviously don't have time to read you mythologies from every ancient civilization around the world in this one episode. I wish I could. But I'm going to start with this article here that kind of breaks it down very lightly, and then I'm going to get into it a little more. Okay, so I believe it was this one right here. Okay. Okay, so obviously right here we have the facts that I already got into. And okay, so I just want to get into this breakdown of the different mythologies, and then I'll get kind of a little bit more into some of those. Okay, so here's just some imagery of the mythologies around the world and how they depict Sirius. So ancient Egypt, there is Isis or Sopdet depictions. So this is Isis, is connected with Sirius. Or Sopdet, I believe is a more ancient version of Isis in some cultures in Egypt. Here's some ancient depictions right here. In ancient Egyptian mythology, Sirius is Isis or Sopdet, while Orion is Osiris or Sa. Belt stars of Orion and the Great Pyramid. That's how. So this is what I was talking about when I was saying these temples around the world are all kind of aligned with the Orion's belt and usually have some sort of significance with Sirius as well. So obviously, everyone's seen the Orion correlation theory with the Great Pyramids and how at a certain time every year the pyramids of Giza, they line up to the stars on the belt of Orion. But a lot of people don't know that also there are these kind of shafts that come out of the pyramid that light goes into at certain times, at certain important times throughout the year. And one of these shafts actually lines up to Sirius. So right here, here's a depiction of that if you're watching right now. Sirius is the Queen's Chamber feminine, Palladius star sister stars. Orion, King's Chamber, Thuban was the pole star when the pyramids allegedly were built and the simulation began. So that's just kind of a depiction of that. And I believe I think it's during the equinox or a certain time like that every year, the Sirius star is exactly aligned with this shaft in the pyramid. It's basically like a shaft of light that shines into the queen's chamber of the Great Pyramid every year. Okay, blue bloods. Allegedly, ancient aliens from Sirius were blue. Their descendants thought of as blue bloods or royalty. So that is where the whole term blue blood comes from. Sirius was both the most important star of ancient Egyptian astronomy and one of the decans, star groups into which the night sky was divided, and which each group appearing for 10 days annually. The heliacal rising, the first night that Sirius is seen just before dawn was noticed every year during July. Early Egyptians used this to mark the start of the new year, the opening of the year, and it was celebrated with a festival known as the Coming of Sopdet. As early as the first dynasty, Sophis was known as the bringer of the new year in the Nile flood. When Sirius appeared in the sky each year, the Nile generally started to flood and bring fertility to the land. The ancient Egyptians connected the two events, and so Sopdet took on the aspects of a goddess of not only the star and the inundation, but of the fertility that came to the land of Egypt with the flood. The flood and the rising of Sirius also marked the ancient Egyptian New Year, and so she was thought of as a goddess of the new year. Her aspect of being a fertility goddess was not just linked to the Nile. By the Middle Kingdom, she was believed to be a mother goddess and a nurse goddess, changing her form from a goddess of agriculture to a goddess of motherhood. This was probably due to her strong connection with the mother goddess Isis. Not just a goddess of the waters of inundation, Sopdet had another link with water. She was believed to cleanse the pharaoh in the afterlife. It is interesting to note that the embalming of the dead took 70 days, the same amount of time that Sirius was not seen in the sky before its yearly rising. She was a goddess of fertility to both the living and the dead. In the pyramid text, she is the goddess who prepares yearly sustenance for the pharaoh in her name of year. She is also thought to be a guide in the afterlife for the pharaoh, letting him fly into the sky to join the gods, showing him goodly roads in the field of reeds, and helping him become one of the imperishable stars. She was thought to be living on the horizon, encircled by the Duat. Paralleling the story of Osiris, and Isis, the pharaoh was believed to have a child with Sopdet. And so the Sumer mythology and Sumerian civilization predating the Egyptians, their epic poem, Epic of Gilgamesh, describes a dream of Gilgamesh where the hero is drawn irresistibly to a heavy star that cannot be lifted despite immense effort. This star descends from heaven to him and is described as having a very potent essence and being the god of heaven. Gilgamesh had his companions, 50 oarsmen, in the great ship Argo, a constellation bordering Canis Major, where Sirius is found. So, Africa, the Dogon tribe. And I want to get more into the Dogon tribe after I finish this article. The Dogon described the star specifically as having a circle of reddish rays around it, and this circle of rays is like a spot spreading but remaining the same size. The Dogon are a West African tribe who have known about and worshipped Sirius A and its twin, the invisible star Sirius B, for the past 5,000 years. They have also been aware of the planet's circle. The sun is elliptical orbits, the 4 moons of Jupiter, and the rings of Saturn. They say that Sirius B is immensely heavy, invisible, very small, yet extremely powerful. Their understanding of the two stars' orbits coincides exactly with modern astronomical findings, yet was arrived at thousands of years before it was scientifically proven. They also claim that a third star, Emma Ya, Sorlum female, exists in the Sirius system. Larger and lighter than Sirius B, this star revolves around Sirius A as well. The Dogon also believe that approximately 5,000 years ago, amphibious gods called Nomo came to Earth in 3-legged spaceships from the Sirius Star System. They have described perfectly the DNA pattern made by this elliptical orbit created by the two stars as they rotate around each other. They believe Sirius to be the axis of the universe, and from it all matter and all souls are produced in a great spiral motion. And like I said, I want to get more into that. So, moving on to Greece. The ancient Greeks observed that the appearance of Sirius heralded the hot and dry summer and feared that it caused plants to wilt, men to weaken, and women to become aroused. Due to its brightness, Sirius would have been noted to twinkle more in the unsettled weather conditions of early summer. To Greek observers, this signified certain emanations which caused its malignant influence. People suffering its effects were said to be astrobolestosar, or starstruck. It was described as burning or flaming in literature. The season following the star's appearance came to be known as the dog days of summer. The inhabitants of the island of Chaos in the Aegean Sea would offer sacrifices to Sirius and Zeus to bring cooling breezes and would await the reappearance of the star in the summer. If it rose clear, it would portend good fortune. If it was misty or faint, it foretold or emanated pestilence. Coins retrieved from the island from the 3rd century BC feature dogs or stars with emanating rays, highlighting Sirius's importance. The Romans celebrated the Heliacal rising of Sirius around April 25th, sacrificing a dog along with incense, wine, and a sheep to the goddess Robigo, so that the star's emanations would not cause what rust on wheat crops that year. I'm not sure what that means. Sorry. Ptolemy of Alexandria mapped the stars in books 5 and 6 or 7 and 8 of I'm sorry, I don't know how to read that of Almagest, in which he used Sirius as the location of the globe's central meridian. He curiously depicted it as one of the 6 red-colored stars. The other 5 are class M and K stars, such as Arcturus and Betelgeuse. China. In Chinese astronomy, the star is known as the star of the celestial wolf. Several cultures also associate the star with a bow and arrows. The ancient Chinese visualized a large bow and arrow across the southern sky, formed by the constellations of Puppis and Canis Major. In this, the arrow tip is pointed at the wolf of Sirius. A similar association is depicted to the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, where the goddess Satet has drawn her arrow at Hathor, Sirius, known as Tyr. The star was portrayed as the arrow itself in the later Persian culture. Muslim. The Quran mentions Sirius in Surah 53 at An Najm. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. The star of the Quran, where it is given the name Al-Shira. The verse is that he is the Lord of Sirius, the mighty star. That he is the Lord of Sirius, the mighty star, and that he is who is the Lord of Sirius, and that he is the Lord of Sirius. Wow. So I never knew that. Basically, the star that's depicted, in the Muslim symbology is Sirius. So that's really fascinating. Polynesia. Just as the appearance of Sirius in the morning sky marked summer in Greece, it so marked the chilly onset of winter for the Maori, whose names Takura describe both the star and the season. Its culmination at the winter solstice was marked by celebration in Hawaii, where it was known as Ka'ulua, Queen of Heaven. Many other Polynesian names have been recorded, including Taua in the Marquesas Islands, Rahua in New Zealand, and and Hoku Kuape in Hawaii. Sorry, I'm fudging up those names. I don't speak Hawaiian. Bright stars were important to the ancient Polynesians for navigation between the many islands and atolls of the Pacific Ocean. Low on the horizon, they acted as stellar compasses to assist the mariners in charting courses to particular destinations. They also served as latitude markers. The declination of Sirius matches the latitude of archipelago of Fiji at 17 ? And thus passes directly over the islands each night. Sirius also served as the body of a great bird constellation called Manu, with Canopus, the southern wingtip, and Procyon, the northern wingtip, which divided the Polynesian night sky into 2 hemispheres. And finally, with the North America and Alaska. Several cultures were also associated the star with a bow and arrows. Many nations among the indigenous peoples of North America also associated Sirius with canines. The Siri and Tohono O'odham of the Southwest note to the star as a dog that follows mountain sheep, while the Blackfoot called it dogface. The Cherokee paired Sirius with Antares as a dog star guardian of either end of the path of souls. The Pawnee of Nebraska had several associations. The Wolf Skiddy tribe knew it as the Wolf Star, while other branches knew it as the Coyote Star. Hopi prophecy states when the blue star Kachina, Sirius, makes its appearance in the heavens, the fifth world will emerge. That's important. That gave me chills. Remember that. I've spent a long time with Native Americans at different times at conferences in recent years, and they always bring this up to me. Very interesting. Furthermore, the Alaskan Inuit of the Bering Strait called it moondog. So, what's fascinating here, I'm sorry, that was a lot, but basically, one thing we can correlate between all of those cultures and all those mythologies is basically that it's always described as a dog. In every culture around the world, it's described as a dog star. There's association with a dog. So that's really fascinating because how would every culture around the world know or make this connection? Like I think that's really fascinating. That either shows that at one time, there was an ancient advanced civilization that was seafaring and explored the whole planet, or that this was just something that is some sort of intuitive knowledge that we all have deep down in the collective consciousness. So I find that really fascinating. Mitch Milosano says that was pronounced Hios. Sorry about that. I know I've messed up so many words there, so many different languages to read there. Okay, so that's like a general overview of basically all the mythologies surrounding Sirius. I think next I want to get into the Dogon tribe and their association with this. Okay. Okay, so this is by Gaia, this article. Was the Sirius Star System home to the Dogon African tribe? The mythology and folklore of indigenous people is often written off as exactly that. Legends and parables used to remember elders and teach younger generations lessons about morality. But what about a tribe whose lore gives a precise location of astronomical bodies and phenomena that aren't discovered by modern science for hundreds of years? The Dogon are that tribe, and they have known for centuries that their ancestors are descendants of a species from the Sirius Star System, 8.5 light years away. Knowledge of the hidden star Sirius B. The Dogon inhabit an area of Mali called the Bandiagara Escarpment, a stretch of sandstone cliffs nearly 100 miles long, reaching up to 1,500 feet high. Taking advantage of the area for its natural protection, the tribe built their homes on the side of the cliffs during the 3rd century BC and have remained there since. But it wasn't until the 1930s that French anthropologists discovered their strangely advanced astronomical knowledge despite maintaining a very primitive lifestyle. Although the Dogon tribe live in an area more than 2,000 miles from Egypt, they have a history that appears to have some intriguing connections with its famed ancient lineage that hinted at some connection to the stars. Upon studying the Dogon tribe, anthropologist Marcel Rial learned of their obsession with the Sirius Star System. While Sirius A is visible to the naked eye, its companion white dwarf, Sirius B, was not discovered until the 1950s with an advanced telescope. The Dogon, however, were well aware of its presence, as well as its orbital period, describing its existence before it was confirmed years later. The Dogon are incredibly familiar with the system where a race of beings from Sirius was purported to have traveled from, imparting their knowledge upon the tribe hundreds of years ago. These beings, known as the Nomos, were amphibious beings coming from the same star system as the Egyptian god Isis. The Dogon also claim that there is a third star in the Sirius system that has yet to be discovered, and gravitational observations might prove their claim to be true. Were the Dogon visited by spiritual beings or ancient astronauts? Or did the anthropologists who first studied them carry out an elaborate deception by giving them astronomical insight to regurgitate in front of camera? Knowledge of preceding modern science. Carl Sagan weighed in on his take of the Dogon tribe and their supposed celestial cognizance by disavowing the idea that it could have come from otherworldly beings. The Dogon were aware of Jupiter's moons and Saturn with its rings, but Sagan said that their lack of awareness or any other planets in our solar system was evidence that they were only reiterating a few pieces of knowledge given to them by their interaction with French anthropologists. However, Sagan's cursory analysis of the Dogon did not touch upon the fact that their knowledge of the Sirius Star System was represented in 400-year-old artifacts, nor did he acknowledge that their understanding of subatomic particles and their theory of the universe's creation was similar to the Big Bang. The Dogon were also very aware of our location within the Milky Way galaxy and knew of the state of Sirius B being an incredibly dense and dying star. This curiosity also led them to make further discoveries regarding human anatomy long before Western discoveries were made. So, who were the Sirius star aliens that this enigmatic tribe met more than 600 years ago? The Dogon refer to them as the Numos or Nomos, beings that are mostly aquatic but were also mobile on land. They appeared only to a small sect of the Dogon tribe because extensive contact with humans would have a negative impact on their well being. In some accounts, the Dogon speak of the Nomos as being non physical. Every 60 years, when Sirius appears between two mountain peaks marking a cycle in its orbit, the Dogon hold a celebration called Sigwi. Leading up to the celebration, the younger men of the tribe sequester themselves from the rest of the group for a few months. During this time, they speak in a secret language. Sigwi itself can last for long periods of time. The most recent celebration lasted 6 years. During these celebrations, the Dogon's knowledge is passed on to future generations, but there is supposedly secret information regarding their knowledge that has not left the tribe. Before I finish this here, I just want to make a connection that with the work I do, reporting for Third Face of Moon, doing interviews with them sometimes and roundtables in the past. Um, I have noticed that a lot of whistleblowers, a lot of people that have worked in government positions and have come forward on the topics of ufology, or not just people that have worked in the government, but also people that have worked for major aerospace and engineering agencies, have come forward and, or at least told me, and have come forward in interviews saying that a lot of the ET or UFO UAPs that they see or that they know of or have experienced have tended to come from the ocean. They tend to come in and out of the ocean. I know someone personally that works with a major aerospace engineering company, which I will not disclose, but they basically told me what they can't tell me and what they think is interesting. And one thing that they said was interesting was not just the idea of extraterrestrial life or life coming from another planet, but ET life coming from under our ocean or into our ocean, or ETs from other planets being amphibious and not being able to walk on land. So maybe they come from, another star system, and then they come straight into our oceans and they live underwater. Maybe they're almost like human-like beings, but they're amphibious and they can't live on land like we do. You know, and this is that obviously connects to many ancient mythologies, and that's just another whole can of worms on its own. But reading that, this is something that a connection that I wanted to make, and it's something that has come up in a lot of interviews I've done with whistleblowers that have worked in the government and these different aerospace agencies. So I just wanted to bring that up. All right, so continuing on here, strange connections with other civilizations. And this will obviously get into this more. Um and and okay, sorry, let me just pause that for a second. So obviously the article I was talking about earlier before I got into the three body problem, where I was that was basically getting into whether Sirius was in the Goldilocks zone, or if it's planets or that star system was in the Goldilocks zone. And basically, it was saying, as you may recall, that it might not have been old enough to really produce life, that there was probably mostly water on, any planets in that star system, and that it probably wasn't possible to have developed land life. But again, why are we only thinking about, extraterrestrial beings that are like us or that live on the surface of a planet? That is completely just like, it's so interesting how life can evolve on the planet. Like, just look at Earth and all the different species and the immense variety of life on our planet that we have not even begun to completely uncover, even in our own oceans. I personally feel that life on other planets would evolve in the same way. So and it might not evolve in the way that we have evolved. So just keep that in mind. Like, maybe we're thinking of things from our perception, but maybe there are beings on these other planetary systems that are maybe almost humanoid in certain ways or highly intelligent, but they are amphibious beings and they live underwater. And maybe they build their spaceships underwater and fly it out of the water, and they have a completely different type of technology that they work with than we do. So that's something really interesting to think about while I get into this next part here. Okay, so strange connections with other civilizations. Amphibious godlike beings appeared in other ancient cultures outside of the Dogon. Ancient civilizations from Babylonia to Greece and even Slavic nations depicted aquatic beings in their mythology. One interesting connection that some have drawn with the Dogon is that of the Dogu in Japan. Alternative theories point to statues of the Dogu, whose name is similar to Dogon, that resemble an astronaut or being in a spacecraft. The Dogu are thought to have arrived in flying ships, bringing written language and many aspects of civilization to the Japanese. Interestingly, in ancient Mesopotamian lore, there is a deity known as Dagon or Dagon, depicted as a merman or fish god. This depiction can also be seen in the Hebrew Bible. But the Dogon's connection with Egypt is the most intriguing, and an argument in their defense from the criticism of Sagan and the pragmatists. The language that the Dogon used to describe the Sirius Star System consists of ancient Egyptian words that have not been used for centuries. Other similarities between the two cultures can be seen in the way they organize their civilizations, such as the creation of an upper and lower kingdom and a 360-day calendar. The Dogon do not have a written language to this day and continue to pass down their history to select members of the tribe by word of mouth. Okay, so that was really fascinating. Oh, thanks Kenny Crowder so much for the donation here. And Kenny says, thanks Apolla. If you need a mod, I'm here for you. Love your way. Thanks, Kenny. I really appreciate it. I actually kind of run my show through StreamYard, so I always forget to pop out the YouTube chat so that I can make people moderators. I need to remember to do that for my next show. It's a little late to do that now. Next show I'll do that. Um, okay, so very interesting here, and I want to make a connection with. Obviously, we also have them here. Let me just pull this up because I didn't even think about this before the show. But there's also the Sumerian fish gods that they don't really mention there, like the fish god looking beings that are depicted in the Sumerian tablets. So let me just pull that up here and share that with you all. Okay. So this is just to give you an idea of, basically every ancient culture around the world has depictions of these beings they call, there's like different names for them in every culture. Sometimes they're called the seven or the seven up Kalu or the seven sages. But they're in every culture around the world, and these are just some depictions of them here. Um, and this is something I didn't really think about this before I started the live, but I'm just pulling this up now so that you can all see what I'm talking about here with these amphibious gods. And I just wanted to make that connection for you all. It's something to think about. And obviously these are the people that, they're not just depicted in places in ancient civilizations in Africa and the Middle East, but also in South America. A book that really gets into this is Magicians of the Gods by Graham Hancock. Highly recommend reading that book. And basically, a lot of times they're depicted as these like fish gods that have these like weird bags. They're always depicted with these weird bags. And no one knows what that means. They're always these fish guys with beards and bags. No one knows what that means, and they've been found, in like every ancient temple, on like every continent around the world. Or not every temple in every continent around the world, but I'm saying like every continent on the planet, there is some depiction of these fish god looking guys that have these bags. And they're often very similar looking, which is interesting because a lot of these places where these depictions of these people are found, and see, this is here is oh, that's from Assyria, but a depiction here. But a lot of these places have these laser cut, megalithic structures that most people probably do not know how to build now. So just making that connection kind of interesting. Okay, so I had a lot more pulled up here. Let me see what okay. There's just so much I can get into with this. And I seriously, okay, let me just briefly go over this here. And this is I'm not going to read this whole article. You can read it if you want to. Ancient Origins is an amazing site. I look at this site all the time. I love reading stuff from this site. But basically this article, they get into the connection between Anubis and Exodal. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that the name of that Mexican dog. It's Zodal or something like that. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about though. The hairless Mexican dog. But or Spanish dog. But basically they get into the connection between these two dogs that are obviously important in ancient Egypt, Anubis, and the Xodal, however you say that, the underworld dog of the Aztecs, and the dogs that are kind of depicted in all these ancient civilizations. You know what? Actually, let me just read a little bit of this real quick because this is really interesting. Okay, I'm sorry I don't know how to pronounce the name. I'm just gonna say Zodal, Zolotl, Exodal. That's probably how you say it. I'm just gonna say it like that. I may be wrong. Okay, Anubis and Exodal, the remarkable resemblance of the death dog gods. Few ancient cultures have captured the modern imagination like the Egyptian and Maya civilizations with their elaborate belief structures. The author traces a remarkable resemblance between the two dog headed gods associated with the ritualistic voyage to the afterlife, Anubis of ancient Egypt and Xotl of Mexico. According to conventional chronologies, both civilizations seem to have emerged around 7,000 years ago, a product of the progress of the Neolithic Revolution. In both regions, the theory holds that indigenous peoples began mastering husbandry, agriculture, and pottery as they both flourished. They developed elaborate, vivid masterpieces of iconography and monumental masonry. As we slowly begin to decipher their beliefs, we are learning how obsessed they were with their journey into the afterlife. Both of these mysterious cultures adamantly believed that they would face a dangerous odyssey upon death, an odyssey filled with monsters, gods, and gatekeepers. But the most striking parallel lies in the fact that both cultures most closely associated with this descent into the underworld with an anthropomorphic dog god. This canine of the netherworld was represented by an actual species of dog identical in both ancient cultures whose genetics are being traced today. Anubis, ancient Egyptian dog headed god of the afterlife. Anubis, as many of you know, is the Egyptian god who is depicted with the head of the dog and the body of a man. Anubis was believed to have presided over the death process and was closely associated with mummification, tombs, cemeteries, dogs, and the underworld. The Egyptians believed that the climax of one's underworld journey, one would be judged by Anubis and his relative Osiris. At the final judgment, Anubis and Osiris would weigh the individual's heart against the feather of Mot, truth. In their heart, if their heart was too heavy with selfish, wicked deeds, then their soul would be discarded and fed to a monstrous crocodile god. It's noteworthy that the mythology of Anubis seems to have suffered a demotion as his cult became eclipsed by that of Osiris. In the oldest versions, Anubis is the son of the solar god Ra, but following the surge in popularity of the Osiris cult, the birth of Anubis was revised, making him the illegitimate son and guardian of Isis. Connecting Anubis and the dog star Sirius and the Maya Exodal. The ancient Egyptians associated the constellation we call Orion with the god Osiris. If we liken the constellation to a man firing a bow, then the star Sirius seems to follow the celestial man like a small companion. The Egyptians linked the star with Isis and Anubis, which is fascinating because we now know, due to advancements in radio telescopes, that Sirius is a binary star. Sirius is then an older star with a younger, much smaller star orbiting it. If the Orion constellation is thought of as a king god and his consort as the star that shadows him, it fits like a glove that the smaller binary star orbiting Isis is her faithful dog guardian, Anubis. What is so curious about this is that the binary nature of Sirius is not evident with the naked eye. Modern science was not even certain that the star was binary until the 1970s. Both the ancient Egyptians and their mysterious neighbors, the Dogon, seem to have been aware that Sirius was a binary star before they had the capability required to make this observation. Xotl, on the other hand, was a Maya and Aztec god of deformities, death, fire, lightning, and monstrosities. He too was depicted with a canine head and a human body. Like his Egyptian reflection, Xotl also is outshined by his twin brother Quetzalcoatl, just as Anubis is by his close relative Osiris. As Quetzalcoatl was associated with the morning star quality of Venus when it precedes the dawn, Xotl also had the astronomical significance as he was associated with Venus when it preceded moonrise. Okay, so, and then it gets more into, this dog breed that they're descended from, or that dogs today are descended from. Um, but yeah, there's seriously so much more I can get into with all of this. But you know what? I'm just gonna leave that for another time because yeah, I think we covered a lot tonight. So let me just go back and look through some of the comments here. I hope you all enjoyed this show. No, people are trying to tell me how to say exodal right. Exlotty. Okay, I'm so sorry. Justin here explain it for me. Exlotty. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining tonight. I really enjoyed getting into this in this episode. I think it was a really fascinating topic. So like I said, my last show was with Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, the legend herself. And we covered the transhumanist agenda. If you would like to go back and watch that, definitely go back and do that if you haven't seen it yet. But we actually got cut off partway through because of some technical issues she was having. So we're gonna do another show, like a part two of that episode, or maybe we'll cover a different topic next week. So definitely stay tuned for that. That'll be next Wednesday, probably airing at 5 p.m. Pacific. So I hope to see you all there. Thanks everyone for joining tonight. And before I go, again, please check out my art that is on shamanspears.com. My uniquely handcrafted energy channeling devices that I invented myself, Shaman Spears. I have a lot of art up on my site, and actually do next day shipping on all orders. So if you would like to make a donation to me and want to help fund me and keep me going, please go to shamanspears.com. Again, that's shamanspears.com. Check out my art. They make great gifts. They're super fun to go exploring with. I personally like to carry my spears everywhere on every adventure I go on because they're just really fun to go hiking with. I mean, if you follow me on social media, you probably see that everywhere I go, I usually take a picture on top of a mountain with a spear. It's kind of my thing. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. So go to shamanspears.com, help fund me in my show, get a spear, join, um, become initiated, and be a part of the secret group that I made of people that buy spears from me. And if you want to find out what that is, purchase a spear and you'll find out. All right. Thanks everyone for joining on tonight's show. I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Until next time on Apollo's Odyssey. Over and out.